And spin. We are live. All right. Well, I thought we should open this week. Before we recorded, we were talking a little bit about how this time of year, all of a sudden, one starts thinking about Christmas and then Halloween. But here's my question. I have not done the thorough research for, so it might be a short question. But over there across the channel, across the Atlantic, depending on where you are, do y'all have candy corn? Is that part of your culture? Candy corn?
Not by that word, but I'm sure it basically means chocolates and sweets, in which case, yes.
It is in the sweet zone, but candy corn is specifically, it's this little gooey thing that it looks like it's called candy corn, but it looks more like a extracted tooth. You know, if you pull a tooth out and the root is there, it kind of like that triangular thing. But it would probably sell poorly if it was called candy extracted tooth. I'm guessing. But
you're not selling me on it so far. Do we have it? No, I'm not missing it thus far.
But let's imagine an elongated kernel of corn, right? So kind of that shape and elongated. And I forget the order, but it's basically there's stripes of orange, white, and brown. And I don't know. It has kind of a slightly distinct, kind of like gooey taste. Candy corn. Big in the States. It's only a Halloween candy. You don't really see it any other time.
I'm sorry, I can't source this for you. No, I haven't seen this stuff. I was in a store yesterday that did carry Hershey bars and Reese's cups and that sort of stuff, but it was boxed in a fancy box and sold as a New York selection or something like that.
Oh, a New York selection. That's fantastic.
Yeah, there was like different types with different stuff in there.
Yeah.
All brands that you would recognize, being from the part of the world that you're from. But that's the best I've got. I can't say I've seen candy canes that look like teeth.
Yeah, well, I'll have to find, maybe for the show art, or at least a link, I'll have to find a picture of candy corn. Maybe I'll even do a little bit of extra research and find some sort of educational video about the history of candy corn. But it is, it's just some weird, I guess, regional thing that we have. I was back in the States for our VMware Explore, and I bought like 4 bags of it to bring back here to the Netherlands for our own Halloween excitement. Well, before we get started...
I think that makes you a dealer.
That's right. Yes.
I've not seen that on the prohibited list for planes, though. I think.
Yeah. You have to pay extra duties on candy corn. I hope not. Well, before we do get to our news wrap up of the last few weeks, or several weeks actually. As I'm sure we three all know, we have we had VMware Explore, which we'll get into here briefly, but our next big conference here in VMware Tanzu land is the Spring One conference, which we have December 6th and 8th, also in San Francisco. So I'll maybe there'll be some sales on candy corn when I get there. We'll see if it lasts that long. But if you want to check that out, I think there's a first round of talks selected. I don't know if they're posted yet, but if you go to spring1.io, you can check that out. And I have a special discount code. Now, Ed, I want you to guess how much you get off when I give you this discount code. It's going to be difficult, so put your thinking cap on.
100%. It's got to be 100%.
Wow, that would be nice. It's close. With that logic, when you hear the code, it almost looks like you get paid to go. But the discount code is just COTE200. That's COT200. Now, other than 200% off, what do you think? And that would be great. You would actually make money by traveling there. Yeah. How much money do you think you get off if you use that code?
So it could be 200 candy corns.
Okay, this is a good guess.
It could be 200 pence, 200 pounds, $200. I could go on. I'm going for $200.
That's right. Well, the only way the listeners will know is if they actually register and use the code, and then they can find out which one it is. But so just go to spring1.io and check it out. I think all of us would highly recommend going there. I don't know if y'all have been involved in looking over talks, but I have, and there's many great ones there, which will be fun. So, as mentioned, this was last week, right, Ben, that we had VMware Explore? I've lost track a little bit. I had a little vacation after that, so I had like some double traveling. I think I know where I am and what's going on. But last week we had VMware Explore, formerly called VMworld, and I was there. I did a lot of things. But tell me from afar, Ben. I know you watched several things. What was going on there? What were the highlights that you had of watching from afar?
Well, there were many, but what springs to mind immediately is just how beautiful it looked. Right, I'm thinking specifically about the keynote, which folks will be able to. It's called the general session. Well, folks will be able to watch that online now. We'll put a link in the show notes, but absolutely beautifully stage managed production. Looked really nice. The folks who were on there were super engaged. Deshaun made a particular name for himself by using the phrase jazzed and pumped. People were making T-shirts with this afterwards. There was a lot of energy in the room. It was very, very engaging piece of TV to watch. It was just like a really well-managed piece of TV. So it was, if you haven't seen it, you should go online to the VMware.com/explore, have a look through the sessions, look for the general session. But yeah, it was really good. And then of course there was lots of announcements in there. So there were things like VMware Aria, which is a new sort of suite of tools to help you manage and inspect and govern everything that you've got in your cloud space. So lots of big news, also lots of small things going on, little bits of news, just small increments of things adding along, but it all adds up to a huge pile of stuff, I think. So well worth checking out, I would say. Go to vmware.com/explore and have a look around at all the videos that are listed there, which went on super fast. Like within hours, videos were starting to appear on the conference website, and that very, very rarely happens. None of that waiting a month to see what someone said last October. It's kind of like there straight away. So you should go and check it out.
That's the COVID thing, isn't it? COVID made sure, because all the conferences went online, the expectation now is stuff's there straight away. So, which is great from my point of view. I'd much rather have things available straight away. You can't possibly be in every session and watch everything, but you want to know, if I didn't catch that one in person and I wasn't there either, I can go online and watch that. So
yeah, I agree 100%. It's kind of like, we do all this effort to get it online and get people to know about it, and use Twitter and LinkedIn and various other places, so folks are engaged and they know what's happening. And then if they can't access it, it's really frustrating. So I love the fact that it was so fast and instantaneous, and all of those sort of keynotes from all the different business groups were also put on really quickly as well, and they all look great. So yeah, I thought that was good. But Michael, you were there. What was it like pacing around the show floor? How many steps did you do? What stood out for you?
Well, definitely pacing. I mean, I think when you go to a conference, you end up having like 10,000 to 15,000 steps. If you're doing it, I think I'm a bit lazy. So I maybe only 10,000 steps is what I got. I don't know if it's professional to admit this, but I have this practice of watching the keynote from my hotel room, just because the streaming is really nice, and then you can enjoy some in-room coffee, kind of relax. So that probably cut down my steps, not walking around there. But yeah, it was, I hadn't been to the Moscone, or I was asking someone how to pronounce that in Italian, and they suggested it would be Moscone. So I don't know where that E ended up at the end there, because I think the guy it's named after was of Italian origins. Whatever. But yeah, it was nice. And I haven't seen all the operations people in a long time. Like, I go to a lot of DevOps days, and they're slightly different than the operations people that you see at a VMworld or a VMware Explore. So it was fun to run into them and all the vendors. And yeah, there was a lot of people there. And the show floor, as it were, all your big brands, and then the people that you got your Fujitsu's, your IBM's, your AWS's, your Google Clouds, and then all sorts of small booths. There was one guy who was the who is he? He's like, I'm gonna embarrass myself by not remembering. He's like the CTO advisor, and he brought a whole Airstream trailer in there, and had a lot of interviews. There you go. And I think he had a good joke at Twitter that you should come over here to see our $10,000 carpet. That cost them $10,000 just to get a carpet in there, and which is fine. And so related to that, I gave 2 talks while I was there, and I don't know if they'll be posted publicly. I'll have to find and download them so that I have them preserved for all time in my time capsule. But what is public is we had a stage set up where we did I think it was 5 or 6 sort of presentation / interviews with various people from the kind of I don't know, infrastructure-y cloud startup world. People like like Dagger and Docker and Spotify about backstage things and several other companies. But what I'm going to put at the end of this episode is an interview. I wasn't there, but my co-host Alex Williams was there, and I'm going to put on the back of this episode an interview that he did with Jen Kelly from Spotify going over backstage, and I just watched it this morning, and it's a pretty good overview of what the deal with backstage is, and also the kind of experience that Spotify has putting it out there. And I think in some of the future episodes, I'll put some other interviews to accompany our news segment here with it. And really, if you want to see them ongoing, I'll put a link in the show notes at tanzutalk.com if you want to get a little preview of the interviews and presentations. If you can't wait for it to come out in the feed here. But speaking of releases, there was also a Kubernetes release that came out. I think 1.25. So Ed, what are some highlights of that release? Because that is the thing that everyone seems to care about, the Kubernetes, the substrate that's providing so much fun in our industry. So what's new and fun in it?
So well, new and fun, fun
or new doesn't have to be fun.
Just new. I think we'll stick with just new. Actually, it is a bit of that, right? I look at this very much, and I think so. A lot of what is in there is sort of security. It's stuff graduating from what used to be beta into stable. There's a lot less of we now have storage, there's a CSI interface kind of stuff, which in our world was fun. Hey, we can do storage, or we've refined networking. Now we're getting down to the, as always, last security. Yeah, it's never last, but it is, with that bolting into extra bits of security. So if we have a look, where's my notes I gave myself somewhere? I've lost them. There we go. Ephemeral pods. That's one that's been sort of coming for a while, right? So the issue of not being able to do debugging because maybe your container image has none of the tools that you need in it, and you're stuck in a catch-22. You've got a pod, you need to do some diagnosis, you can't do anything. The ephemeral pods are designed to sort of help you spin up something alongside your pod just for the sake of debugging and then get rid of it again. So it'll be interesting to see once that gets into kind of the base Kubernetes, how it gets used by everybody else. Everyone has observability and other things built around it. How are they going to, that basic functionality, how will it get used by everybody?
I love this one. I think this is much needed, to be honest, because it caters to folks like me who are completely useless most of the time when it comes to really digging into what's going on inside Kubernetes, So, the idea that you could spin up an extra pod temporarily that has a whole bunch of tooling in it that you might be familiar with, rather than a hardened pod where it's all been stripped away to reduce the, the security footprint of it. I think I could see myself going straight to the documentation for that and giving that a try once it appears in, some of these cloud providers online, I reckon. So I think that's a good one. That's a really good one.
Yeah. And I'm sure that's going to make its way into all their exams, like the CKN things. That's just going to be bread and butter in no time at all. I remember doing that, and just the number of times you had to do various arcane command lines just to try and troubleshoot something. Whole new topic for that. Brilliant. Well, not that I want to do that again. So what else was in there? There was some stuff around grace periods, termination. And so essentially when you're talking, is your pod in a ready state? Is it not? Termination status, all those kind of ready probes. There's some extra functionality in there to just help with stability. So min ready seconds. So again, they're little tweaks. They're right down at the very low level, but they're just the kind of thing that you're getting to where everyone says, actually, the settings that are currently there aren't quite enough. I want something a little more precise. That'll do the trick. So they'll just find some little use case where everyone says, that solves my little itch particularly. I don't have to write some custom code or controllers. I can just have it built in. I see notes here from you, Ben. Time zone in cron jobs, which I'd never really thought about, but yeah, like anything. You kind of sometimes just need to know. I got caught out by time zones because I was on holiday for a couple of weeks. So I did the stuff you'd have thought I guess they have sorts, right? I was in Spain. I booked in a couple of meetings while I was on holiday. Bad me, maybe. So my calendar automatically said, hey, you're in Spain. Let me book those in the Central European time zone. I didn't know I was doing that. So I booked it in at, midday when I thought the meeting was. I got home and every meeting I booked was like an hour out because it had assumed my time zone. I didn't know that. Chaos. But I'm sure
for a cron job where you could be, installing it in China from, the US or whatever. a cron job, normally you're just telling it, okay, this time of day, this date, this regular. You don't really set a time zone on it. So I never thought of it before either, but it seems like, oh yeah,
Exactly.
Oh yeah, why don't we have that? So having that go stable, that sounds good. And C groups as well. I definitely remember having some compatibility issues with C groups, because as you move between different operating systems, I think, like different Linux versions, depending on the kernel you've got, you'll get either C groups v1 or C groups v2. You've got v2, it'll stop certain things happening. I definitely remember sticking points there. So it's nice to see that, that stuff's all moving along. Like I said, small increments, but, they can make a big difference to some folks depending on what issues they're seeing, I think. So, yeah, it's good.
Yeah. And hopefully the fact we're getting down to these smaller features means the whole thing is getting more stable, right? Because whether it's C groups or not, as you said, it can be a little kernel difference. What you want to get to is less of that variance, more of just, everyone's happy with this version. Don't change it, because the more things change, the more things break. So we want to be getting down to actually there is less and less and less changing. I think this release said it had 40 changes or something compared to 46 in the one before. So there's still some, but I think compared to the early releases, you're hard pressed now to see big bang stuff. It's all nice to haves rather than can't believe that wasn't there before.
Just fun things around the edges, essentially.
Yeah.
It seems like time zones are such a problem. Maybe there should be a practice in any sort of time-based thing at this level of computational of the computational world, where it always just makes you double check, and it's like, here are 3 example time zones this is actually going to be in case it gets messed up, because it always a problem. Just to,
exactly, time zones should be so simple, but they still confuse me. I still have multiple clocks on my pull out on Mac OS and other things, and still somehow somebody asks me stuff, my brain still struggles over hang on, is that forward, behind? People like my brother lives in Canada. There's always that. So when he said Thursday at 5 a.m, what time is that for them? Is it Friday night?
Yes.
It's ridiculously difficult for something so simple.
Yeah.
Hey, I've got an idea. Why don't we just make everyone use GMT? Everyone has to get up at GMT, 7 a.m. GMT or whatever.
Yeah. How convenient. For some people.
That would fix the problem. It would fix the problem, right?
That's right. Maybe there should be some national treaty where we just randomly select a time zone, and forever we just go with that. Just like who the great time zone, and we could really make it complicated by doing it every year, and we'll figure out what the time.
We could do it with the drop of the ball in New York on New Year's Eve. It'd be like, and then when it gets to the bottom, it says whichever time zone is going to be this year's time zone.
I like that. That we'll suggest that maybe to some sort of ISO or ITEF group or an RFC process. I'm not sure. Of course,
if it picks one of the ones, say China, the ball would drop. It would be New Year, and then you'd be like, right, go home. It's over already. I'm going to go forward.
That's right. Exactly. Well, also
alphabetically, right? Go through it alphabetically.
That's a good idea. Then you can anticipate it and plan ahead.
And PST will be right near the bottom.
Totally. Well, also it looks like going way back in time. Everyone remembers Heroku. In fact, I think that drove a lot of what we have nowadays. The great paths from long ago. Also, the origin of the 12-factor application manifesto, as I recall, which I always like to say one of the best pieces of technical marketing ever created. It's fantastic that these things were outlined and lasted this long. But it looks like finally. I'm glad I saw this, because finally they're going to, not finally, as if it's inevitable, but they're going to phase out the free tier that they have, which I think my other podcast, Software Defined Talk, relies on that to make it easy to sign up for Slack. Because I'm not sure if maybe we'll have to finally move to Discord where you can actually just sign up for it without having a special invitation. But I think we're going to have to have an emergency strategy session and bring in the product managers over at that podcast to figure out what to do. But
you hit the nail on the head, though. That's exactly the problem, isn't it? There's hundreds of thousands of hobbyists and other sort of undocumented uses of these platforms, and it's a big deal for some when they go away, I reckon.
Yeah, especially at that. I mean, it's so many nice things about Heroku, and people like ourselves who have taken advantage of those nice things for free. And I am never one to begrudge people making sure that they have a good business behind them. And I mean, they launched in like 2007 or 6, I think. So they're do you pronounce it largesse? They're giving away to the community has been plenty, but we'll see.
Yeah, they still even today contribute a great deal, don't they, to the build pack open source, for example.
That's right.
So there's an awful lot going on with build packs to this day. Buildpacks.io, very popular. Paqueta, of course, is included in some of our stuff, and we use them a lot to make sure that containers are secure. And that also, is helped along immensely by Heroku, and they still contribute to that today. But what made me chuckle was the fact that they have a Minecraft build pack.
Yeah, I hadn't seen that before, but that is genius.
And what are people going to do if they can't run that for free? It's so sad. It's like taking the toys away from the kids at Christmas, really, isn't it? It's like...
surely someone will do you can get all the Unify networking gear, and it has to run its own little software-defined controller in the cloud, and then someone ran a business, Hostify, where they said, you know what, it's kind of thousands of little hobbyists and home labbers all want to run their one VMs somewhere. I will just set up a dedicated service for it. So someone might take the Minecraft bit of Heroku and go, there you go, free Minecraft Heroku thing built in with some Microsoft advertising, who knows? But I figure they'll find a way, especially with Minecraft. Right?
Oh, there's plenty of choices for Minecraft servers. Yeah, you can do that, and you can get free ones in the cloud, but they are managed by someone else, and you sort of have to jump through their hoops, and they're always basically trying to hold you upside down by your ankles to see how much money they can get out of you. So yeah, having an ability to just run it for free on Heroku. It's such a shame that build pack will be a bit, neglected maybe. I don't know, but all these kids will be, why, Daddy? What's happened to our server?
Never.
Well, maybe over there in Salesforce Tower, this is part of the new monetization strategies. They might start charging for. They'll have a special dynamo, the Minecraft dynamo, or whatever they call it nowadays. And they don't want to do the upside down ankle trick. It'll have a reasonable fee for it. Maybe you can even use, what's the currency they have in Minecraft? Just coins. Maybe you could
probably emeralds, I reckon. Yeah.
Something like that.
Their biz dev people will call it Microsoft and get some alliance going around using the currency to pay for Heroku. Well, also, speaking of long stayed mature things, it looks like I didn't dig into this, so maybe one of you two can go over it, but it looks like NGINIX. I think they're probably, I haven't checked in a long time, but at one point they were like the number one used web server out there for people, but they're used in all sorts of stuff. But what have they been talking about recently? What's the news that I missed there?
So they put out a blog post, and I didn't know much about the background. I'm like you, I knew NGINX is everywhere and still is everywhere. It's used in every example and every tutorial and everything else. So it caught me a bit by surprise, but the blog post is almost, the tone comes across as kind of apologetic of, essentially we've got the tone wrong. We've been monetizing stuff almost too much, or getting the wrong balance between what goes in open source, what goes in commercial versions. And it kind of felt like they'd got that balance wrong, missed a bit of the boat. So the blog was saying we're actually going to, take stock and change course. And we've heard a lot of feedback from a lot of users. So we're going to rebalance what features we put where, how we develop things going forwards. They've been looking at the new gateway API and saying that seems to be the future. And I'm guessing that wasn't for them beforehand. Maybe they hadn't seen that so much. And I think some of it is just rationalizing, right? They had like at least 3 different versions. They caused some sort of confusion between product versions. And they've, I guess in some ways it's quite good of them to stand up and say, kind of got something wrong, and we're going to fix it. That wasn't NGINX or my dog.
Yeah, my dog is very excited about the new direction over there.
The vote of confidence, I think I heard there.
As always.
I wondered which one of us was under attack.
Yes, yeah, it's probably a delivery notification from my dog there. Speaking of notifications, I think the last thing to go over, much like my dog, is an event-driven system. that notifies me of things. It looks like Amazon has published, some examples of serverless code snippets out there, which I think I am always curious about how the dream of serverless is going. And maybe it's just because I don't have the right Google alerts or RSS feeds set up, but I don't get informed about it too much. But I'll have to go over there and browse the snippets and see what people are doing with it. Do y'all encounter like a lot of serverless stuff out there? Like, how's the momentum around that seem to be doing?
You make the right point in that it's really hard to say exactly how it's doing. I couldn't tell you the health. I couldn't give you a health check on that particular thing. I know it's always been, for me, speaking personally, as previously being a developer for a long time, it was always something that was on the to-do list, but never really graduated to the must-have list. I must do this. It was always the to-dos rather than the must-dos, and that's a shame, because I feel like I'm missing out a little bit on what's going on in that in that space, perhaps. And these snippets seemed like a really good way to try and just take a look and understand what's happening in that area and how you might be able to get started in that area and have useful code in that area. These particular ones from AWS, what I liked about them was that they covered lots of different aspects of things that you might want to do in your serverless applications. And they had code samples for multiple languages, which I also thought was a really good way of sort of meeting people where they are. The website looks great. The search facility looks great. It's really well laid out. The code snippets look really easy to follow. It looked really well thought out, and I like that about it. So I'm all for anything that sort of empowers people to try things out and to, maybe get the best out of them, even though I'm not getting the best out of them in this particular case.
So another link to put on the for later list. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, we should definitely do that. I think it was a nicely done site, definitely.
Well, looking through that reminded me of, I've as many of us, I've been curious about like what the deal with Backstage is and how to describe it. And I don't know if we have like a great pat way of describing it yet. Maybe we do, but it does seem like, obviously this list of serverless stuff is public, but it seems like this kind of, here are examples of using services and code. Like that's one nice thing it seems like you can do when you set up how you're using Backstage, have your kind of portal. In the Tanzu application platform, we have like a couple of API browsing and documentation, things like that. But it was making me think of that. Speaking of which, that's the news that we have for this week. And if you're listening to this, what you can hear next is an interview with Jen Kelly going over, she works over at Spotify. She's worked at Google Cloud and other people. And there's an interview with my friend Alex Williams from VMware Explore, as we talked earlier, about kind of going over what Backstage is. And maybe I've listened to it. Maybe I need to go back and listen to it again to get really that very pat phrase understanding of what exactly Backstage is. Other than my explanation is like a intranet portal site for developers, which is about as thrilling an explanation as it sounds. I think anytime you can work intranet and portal into the same phrase, you should probably just throw that into the trash and start over again, because it doesn't. I don't know. That doesn't really get my excited blood boiling or anything.
It sounds like a time machine. 15 years back.
Exactly. The next thing that we're going to start talking about is collaboration software and Web 2.0 and how that goes. Well,
hey, I tell you what, though, if I think back to my previous life as an architect. This is brilliant, right? Every time I hear something new about Backstage, I dig into it a little bit further. I love it more and more. It's exactly what you need if you're trying to do that whole sort of developer relations piece around this is how we used to work and this is how we now work, how we now want to approach modernization and microservices and all those sorts of things. It's got so many tools to help you with that exercise of education and articulation of what it is that you want to do. I think it's absolutely brilliant. I'm really looking forward to this one.
All right. Well, that was the news for this week. And if you want to get the show notes, you go to tanzutalk.com. You can find links and other stuff like that. And of course, as I always like to advise people when it comes to podcasts, whether you're doing it at work or at home, you need to log into all the devices that you have and subscribe them to this podcast. Now, if you've got multiple softwares, you got the Apple Podcast thing, you might be using Overcast, maybe the Stitcher. Just subscribe to it everywhere. You don't actually have to ever listen to it. Just make sure that it's downloading, because that's ultimately what I don't know. It's fun, essentially. So subscribe to it everywhere. Force your children to subscribe and listen to it, and they will become better people. I guarantee it. But you get your money back if I do not fulfill that promise. So we'll see everyone next week, and enjoy the backstage interview. All right, that's a good pause. All right, I'm still streaming. Do you have anything you want to tell the streamers?
Well, only that they should probably check out talks. You know, if they like learning and like I do, then they should check out the talks at vmware.com/explore, because there's loads on there. Yours is probably there, Michael. I'm pretty sure one of mine is there as well. So yeah, go and have a look at those, because there's tons and tons of content there, and I've only scratched the surface, and I'm already really pleased with all the different assets that have come out of that. I think it's great.
It's like a winning lottery card. You scratch the surface and you win. No matter what. That's I don't know about that one.
Like every year I get a list of all the talks, and I'm like, I didn't catch them at the time. I will watch them later. Next year I look back at that list. I didn't watch any. I never met the time. I've got to do it now, or it just
I think the three of us and probably everyone else in the world has that. What was it? The look at it later pile, which is also known as the look at it never pile.
Absolutely.
I never worked in my gag about Heroku being not Heroku, NGINIX being 18 years old. There's so many things you can do legally now. You're 18.
Yes.
That would have been good.
A whole bunch of gags in there, but maybe next time.
Start having some drinks, driving, voting, depending on what country you're in. It's
you can serve time in a real prison.
Oh yes. Yeah.
Maybe that's why they changed course.
But because back in the States, you can't really drink alcohol till you're 21. At one point, I think in the 80s, if you were in Louisiana, like so many things in Louisiana, you could drink when you were 16 or 18. I forget, but like. It was always consternating for us teenagers that we could be drafted to go be in the military, but we couldn't get a drink, in this strange area. But it was probably for the better.
Jimmy, right? You're licensed to buy a gun, but not to actually have a drink.
Probably. That also seemed.
Even so.
Yeah, that also seems like a good idea.
Separation of concerns, I think they would call it in architecture circles, wouldn't they? Yeah, definitely.
Exactly. All right. Well, speaking of good ideas, we should wrap this up, and we'll see everyone next week. Bye-bye.
Bye, folks.